Good afternoon, Nick.
Hello.
Welcome to the So Far.
I'm corporeal.
So far, so good.
I have achieved my true form at last.
You poor thing, you. It's been a long time since we've had you on the sofa.
I know, it's been 6.5 years. I think the first ever recording of for RTA back in September 2016.
Gosh.
Which was also the Tide of Freedom 99 not documentary, there was no documentary. The
commentary. We recorded a DVD commentary with you, didn't we?
Yes.
But that's sort of what I want to talk to you about. Not DVD commentaries, but recording.
Oh.
Because you are a recorder, aren't you?
I am a recorder, yes. Not that sort. But yes.
I will play you like a musical instrument. But what I mean is...
not everyone says that to me.
No. You are currently working your way through a vast mountain of... I can't really say personal tapes of ours.
No, because
it makes it sound ruder than it is.
Yes.
But you're archiving all the stuff that everybody you know has recorded over the years.
Without
so
exception.
what sort of stuff are you preserving?
Basically, everything that is, as you say, personal, but irreplaceable stuff that was recorded years ago.
Yeah.
Either audio or video. And because I've got the technology to transfer it through, and I just think now is the time really to
now
do
is
it.
the hour.
Now is the hour of our discontent. It's all this stuff. Nobody's got a tape recorder anymore, and there's some real gems to find out there. So stuff we've forgotten about, stuff we've been looking for years, and it's time to get it into the digital age because. I've just had, it just gives me immense joy, and again it gives me immense joy to do it for people as well. I mean, the most prolific one I suppose would be the Sutton Park, all episodes of Sutton Park.
Well, Paul has over 3,000 episodes of Sutton Park, of which you've managed to recover almost all of them?
Yes, there is only about 3 tapes left that we haven't got that have not been captured in any form. I think it's always all towards the end as well. It's 1999. There's one tape, singular tape from 99, and there's 1 or 2 from 2000, and that is it, folks. And it's all in a little box.
One hard drive.
No bigger than that.
Yeah. How many tapes did that involve?
Well, I didn't count.
You didn't count them, but it's going to be a lot, isn't it?
It's about 5 hefty drawers worth with several stratas to them. So, it's an enormous amount. And they're all kept now at Paul's parents' house, which is big. But it's been a joy. But also, one of the things with this is what other gems are there to be discovered? And I've just liberally raided your...
Well, we've... I don't know that we've skimmed the surface, but we've had a good delve and found 2 carrier bags worth of tapes for you. Some of which you surprised me by saying, I don't have this.
No, I mean, as original recordings of Rayface Shift, the tape scene I did, Doc 2 tape scene. I mean, there's original articles from that, and there's also yours and Lisa's Rayface Shift 15,
unfinished
Rayface
released one.
Yeah, I mean, I've as it was unfinished, we never really distributed any copies. And I remember quite fondly some of the stuff we did then. We worked together very much as a team, all of us, and there's some articles there that I'd like, and also plug. I'm in the process of writing a book, or assisting in writing a book with Alan Hayes, who did a tape scene called Sonic Waves, Doctor Who tape scene called Sonic Waves in the 80s, and he and I are scouring the land for any kind of tape scenes, however obscure, to go in this sort of ultimate book of everything that is tape scene that can be foundable. And we've discovered there was one tape scene called Doctor Who 2000, and we tracked down Neil Hogan.
I remember him, yeah.
And it took us a while, but we tracked him down. And this just goes to show how people's lives change. And he threw every single last one of them away. And we've only got 7 in captivity after 31.
Oh dear.
But we reckon they're out there somewhere, probably mostly in Australia. And we discovered only last week, our friend Andy, he did one, and we didn't know about it. So that's with. So 15 will be in the huge database, both as a product and albeit unreleased, but everything about 15 will be recorded in the book.
Yeah. Well, let's take you back to your beginnings.
Take me back. Yes, by hypnosis.
Back to your beginnings.
To your beginnings.
When you first saw when did you first see a tape recorder? And what did it look like?
I first saw a tape recorder.
And whose was it?
It was the family's.
Okay.
I first saw a tape recorder in 1970. It probably was. And here it is. This is the instruction book of my little Sony.
Right, zoom it in a bit.
Zoom it in. It's a Sony one. Very nice job. And I've even got somewhere, although I didn't bring it with me, the little Czech chitty of it. It was
the Eric Chitty.
It was Eric Chitty. It was before digital, before decimalisation, a few weeks before. And this microphone that we got here. Zoom
a mic.
Now, your good self actually worked with that microphone 25 years ago on my film One More Bow, when you played the cameraman in there.
Oh, I had to do microphone technique.
You did lots of lovely, funny microphone acting. That was with this.
Good Lord.
So my first, my first memory of the tape recorder, I suppose, it kept being brought out at sort of the odd intervals, and I was interviewed. Actually, no, even further back. This was my first ever tape.
C60?
In the 70s, at the moment it's got my 18th birthday and a few other things, but in the 70s it had Nick's Choice. Actually, is it still? Yes, it's still got that written on there. Nick's Choice, or Nicky's Choice, because there was Nicky back then, and Jenny's Choice.
I never think of you as a Nicky.
No, I gave that up years ago. So basically, this was the one for the kids. Stick on the kids what they wanted from TV. Jenny chose The Six Wives of Henry VIII and did sound clips of presumably a repeat showing from 1971 or 2. And even now, when Ali and I are watching The Six Wives of Henry VIII, even though the recordings are long gone from here, I still recognise the bits. I said to Ali, "Oh, this is one of Jen's soundbites." To her extreme disinterest, I should imagine. And my choice was The Goodies.
All right.
Now, I can only remember a few clips of the Goodies episode, but I tell you, when the DVD came out, I was feverishly looking for the episode with it. It's not Kitten Kong, before I say anything, but there's they come back from a football match and they say, "God save our gracious Queen and our fantastic team," or something like that. And Graham Garden's talking about postponing a holiday, or sort of putting a holiday back, or something like that. And I've not found that episode yet. So,
okay.
But anyway, I digress. So this was the first tape we actually got. It's got all sorts of bits and bobs, but there's an episode of Basil Brush which my sister and I are watching, and my mum, and you can hear a 2-year-old me trying to molest the tape recorder. That's sort of like, and kind of feel it, and you've got my mum saying, "Hey, don't touch it, Nicky!" And I'm kind of Basil Buck. But the first recording that was also on here on the red one was my sister doing an interview with me, which still exists, about Christmas '72, where I sing Away in a Manger and Crazy Horses. Lovely, wonderful double bill that. I've actually put it on. I've done a video to it and put it with sort of stills from the time, and put it out on Facebook quite a few times. So it's there out it's on YouTube. But I'm quite pleased with that one. But later on, I think it was a Sunday night in 1976 where I kind of just I'd fancy a bit of a play with this wonderful machine, and I just did a few sort of poppy songs. I was always doing some improvised pop songs and things. But also that year we did a tape for my mum who had gone to Paris, and my 15-year-old sister was left rather illegally with me, and mum was going to come home by the time the kids were in bed, and we'll record a message for her, and that still exists, and I think it's been on Shy Life as well. But I was, because my mum wasn't there, there was nobody there to look after me at lunchtime, because last year at infant school I went home for lunch, and next door neighbour did, and there was a little girl called Helen who was our next door neighbour's daughter, and she had this toy basil brush, and I'd do this wonderful thing where I'd go into Helen's house for lunch and I'd play with her basil brush after lunch. All totally innocent, of course, but that still exists. 2 years later we did one when Mum was in Spain. I have a horrid feeling that's gone, but I'm trying to persuade my sister to rip her dear house apart and try and find it. But yeah, it all really kicked off seriously in the summer, about just before Christmas '77, because I got home from school and I remembered this sort of time before, and I thought, actually, I really fancy a go on the tape. And I was given a tape of one of my dad's first 9 lessons and carols, which, ironically, the bits of actually got me into that, but that's another story. But I just spent the whole evening sort of in my own TV world, creating these things. And again, I think I was called to supper, and that was about it. I was totally in the zone. And there was this funny bit where I was doing, again, one of my improvised pop songs, and in those days I didn't know what making love meant. I just sort of said, I thought it was kissing and being a girlfriend, a boyfriend, and I was singing this song about making love, and Mum had someone at the door from, I don't know, the Children's Society or the church or something, and she could hear this thing about make love in the fields, make love in the fields, and you go, yes, well, I'll see you in church on Sunday then. It was sort of a bit embarrassing for her. But I interviewed the whole family. There was a Sunday afternoon where we were waiting for an arena programme about Star Wars, and of course Star Wars brand new. Yeah. And we were waiting, and we were talking, I'm going, supposing if it isn't as if it was the end of the world. But there's a few times when I was interrupted, and I didn't mean to be interrupted. My dad stood at the middle of the stairs and started reciting The North Wind Will Blow, and I got very upset about that because he was interrupting my programme. I was in the zone. But I think this might be nonsense, but I think what really got me into it when my best friend moved to Manchester in 1977, and I suppose I needed some compensation. It was about that time I started The Magnet Editor, my sci-fi show, which went on to Life After and blah, blah, blah. So I think I was looking for some sort of compensation in that, and taping. Funny enough, taping Doctor Who came very slow to me.
Same here.
It didn't occur to me.
Yeah. Same here. When we get to the point, I'll say about it.
Okie dokie,
it wasn't just you.
No. No. The thing is, when I with Tom Baker's first season, I started getting really interested in watching it, everyone, and then I had a party to go to in part 2 of Revenge of the Cybermen, and I thought, well, I think somebody's idea to tape it. And when I remember sitting in the kitchen listening to the playback. Not only was the sound, the microphone nowhere near, because it was sort of sat on the table, but which was absolutely inadequate. And anybody who knows Revenge of the Cybermen, lots of clambering around rocks and escaping and running around and shouting, didn't cut the mustard on tape. So, and I suppose apart from Tom, I didn't really recognise who was who, having just seen the first episode only by then. So the idea of recording it was deemed a failure. Yeah. And it wasn't really until 3 years later when they repeated The Invisible Enemy. I thought, I might want to see it again. What am I going to do? And they go, of course I've got a tape recorder. And I taped the last episode and played it and played it and played it and played it. And even then it didn't occur to me to tape the show. Yeah. And I suppose the tapes also were... I was using a real used one from from 6 years earlier. So even then, it didn't really occur to me that you could actually. Why didn't you use some of your pocket money? Go out and buy one. You know, it was.
But did you ever get to play with a tape recorder at school? Because I did, and that's where I first encountered one. Because I guess it was an English class or something. It must have been about 1980, 1979, 1980, and the teacher had, what I think was a cassette recorder. It wasn't a reel-to-reel thing, and they said write an audio sketch or something like that. So we wrote some silly sketch, and it was something about washing some socks. And you'd put too much starch in them, and the socks went all stiff. And the way we showed this, I thought, well, how'd you show that on audio? So I got one of those shatterproof rulers, you know, those plastic, and twanged it on the desk to make the noise of the socks being all stiff. And I thought that was quite inventive at the time. But personally, we didn't get a cassette recorder until maybe about 1981. Now, through a very roundabout route, that my dad worked as a dairyman, and they had this sort of feeding machine for the cows, which you had to program by pressing buttons. I remember pressing the buttons, and it would record how much food the cows had had, each individual cow had had, because each cow had a thing round its neck with a sort of radio thing on it, and it was an automatic feeder. So they put their heads in the feeder and get some food, and it would be recorded on this machine. But to transfer it onto paper, my dad basically said the numbers out loud into a cassette recorder that was supplied by work, which of course he got to take home. So within a few weeks, I started taping things off the telly and off the radio, including, I remember, a couple of episodes of the Goodies, including Bigfoot.
I think that a clip of your mum laughing
My mum laughing at it.
It's on Spotlight, isn't it?
Yeah. My mum laughing in the background at it. So there's the Bigfoot episode, the holiday episode. I remember taping an episode of Open All Hours and an episode of Heidi High, and a few bits and bobs off the radio, which I don't think I found the tape for yet. But including like the Noel Edmonds Sunday morning show, because he used to do sketches on there, and I wasn't bothered about the music. I just liked the bits in between that were the sketches. So I had a couple of tapes just of comedy stuff, but I didn't tape Doctor Who until the Five Doctors.
Wow, gosh,
what an idiot!
I mean, no one know. I mean, the thing is, once I did that, I thought, well, yes, but you know, the next season came and went, and it didn't occur to me to tape it. Then I discovered the following year that Pirate Planet was going to be shown. And I thought, oh yeah, I like Pirate Planet. I'll tape that. So I taped that using the same tape I was using over and over and over again.
I was going to say, it's all very well taping things, but you soon start to build up a lot of tapes, or find you can't afford the tapes. So
the thing is, all these kind of improvised things I was doing around about Christmas 77, beginning of 78, I mean, I can still remember them in my head like they were yesterday, but they've all long since gone. But with Pirate Planet, and the thing is, it didn't occur to me to do Android Zatara at the time, because I hadn't really all that particularly liked it on first transmission. And then my friend David Sprakes, who was a Who fan, said, "Are you going to take Android Zatara?" And I thought, oh, I could do, I suppose.
I suppose so.
Well, yeah. And I went out and bought a C120 and taped it and fell in love with it when they repeated it. But it wasn't till I think Leisure Hive was the first one that I actually, because I did all the repeat ones, but it was Leisure Hive until I actually did a proper. But it wasn't until 1979 I actually got a tape recorder of my own.
Yeah.
But it's funny you were saying about the obscure things that you tape off the telly and the radio. Early in 78, I was haunted, because I used to get up first thing in the morning and I would hear my mum listening to what I later discovered was Yesterday in Parliament with the order. I thought, I know it sounds crazy, Mother, but I keep hearing this voice on the radio saying order. And I felt so stupid just saying it. And I thought, no, that's Yesterday in Parliament. And I actually did tape, I've still got it, the little recording of Lord Dolly Pandy singing order. And I compared it to an 80s one. who sounded very cab. So you've got this Welsh voice scream, order, order, and then you've got this order, order. But I compared orders, But also there was a bit of the Professionals, I think I did, and later on I did things like Grandad and Sapphire Steel. I did the photo story of Sapphire Steel, and all sorts of things. Like there's an episode of Swish of the Curtain, I think I did. But going back to what you were saying about school, no, I don't think they really trusted me with a tape recorder until 1982. We did like you're saying a play. Now I tend to get known for plays because they knew I was Poncy at English, and we did one of Cheats on the Run, which is, I thought, how about a cross-country run where they're all cheating, which is very difficult. Well, with hindsight, it wasn't a best idea to do, but I mean, I had these kind of lads sort of on board with it, so they played all the hard nuts, and I played Bartholomew Bottler, who kind of shops them all to the headmaster, and one of them we had outtakes of overacting, right, you creeps, it's the usual route twice. Woe betide anyone that cheats, and we had the lovely line, I think there was a thunderstorm in it, which I think was someone going and real high tech, and it had the wonderful outtake, you idiots could have been seriously killed.
Seriously killed.
Which I wrote into my pantomime, Sunset Warden, but no, I love all that sort of thing. And I did a little, we used to record, my friend Mark Slade and I used to record this sort of scientific thing called the isolator and the electric current, which we were played two scientists, and we used to just leave the tape recorder running and play, basically. And it was multi-purpose. It's always followed me. The thing is, though, once the tape, that was a lovely job. You could do buttons and a nice transparent cover and finger buttons, a bit like the early videos. And but once they got to me, they went to Rumbelows, the cheapskates, and my first one broke down almost as it got it, and my second one was a Crown, which from Rumbelows, which tittered and tattered and. Well, basically, it was. I just think of, and also, Logopolis was done on a radio cassette recorder which creaked, so I can't listen to Logopolis now without thinking. Or a thing is, though, one little thing actually, whilst it's in my head. Of course, I went to great lengths, after my sister left home, I went to great lengths to keep everyone quiet whilst I'm tape recording Doctor Who, and I was quite rude about it, to be honest.
I did it upstairs.
Good call.
Because we had a TV upstairs that I could push the cassette recorder right up against the speaker and turn it up a bit, and nobody minded.
That would have been ideal, but we didn't get a second telly. Well, we didn't get a second telly until 1985. But with that, if I had kind of known the future and these things were going to be out on video, pirate, official, DVD, Blu-ray, the lot, I wouldn't have imposed that at all. I would have just said, and it would have been more amusing having these old recordings. The Visible Enemy, it was let it all hang out. When they're saying goodbye to Professor Marius, my sister's asking who Louise Jameson is engaged to my mum. And sort of 10 minutes in, when K9's been in full view, Mum goes, "There's K9." And I'm enthusing them at the
It's almost like a sort of live commentary,
yes.
isn't it?
Yeah, and I'm really getting off on seeing the episode again, so I'm being embarrassing. And my dad, my dad coming out of the loo, and when he runs into the TARDIS and takes off without Leela, my dad goes.
But when I first met you, I'd started to delve into Doctor Who tape scenes with Sonic Waves and Unit Tape Scene, for example, and you sort of knew tape scenes yourself by that point, didn't you? So what was your first tape scene?
My first tape scene was one that David Howe did, who is author of many a Telos book now, and he just called it, I think the advert read The Oracle Speaks, because I think he did a tape fanzine called The Oracle, and it was a tape about Doctor Who. it blew my mind. I hadn't occurred to me.
So
to do
where
it.
did you see it? This was
Celestial-
an advert in Celestial
Toy Room, yeah. And I just was blown away by the idea, and I sent for it immediately.
So did you have to send off a blank tape?
Yes.
Yeah. So a blank tape and
tape,
postage.
and very neat presentation, and clips abound from stories I didn't even.
I have heard that. Because there's a quiz about voices.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. So there's things like the monoids from the Ark.
Yeah, I think the only one I got was the Nymons.
Yeah.
Because I remember Horns was only 4 years earlier, but I mean it was brilliant and funny. I don't know why I didn't spend more pocket money on tape scenes, because I think I have this. My whole family's got this sort of rather conservative view of spending money, and I think that's why I was late to videos, but we'll come to that later. So Unit Tape Scene was my next one, which I bought. I actually appear in some of the issues.
You used to voices, send in letters.
Yeah, I sent in letters. I didn't actually bother to record them, but and then I got Sonic Waves, and because they were going to review The Invisible Enemy, and that was really the only thing that sort of drew me to it. But the production values were.
My first Sonic Waves was episode 4, which I think was actually a very good one to start with, because that had clips from like the Dalek Master Plan. I didn't even know that clips from the Dalek Master Plan existed on audio.
Yes.
Ironically, one of them's from episode 2, which of course has since turned up on video.
Shucks.
No. It was very weird seeing the pictures for something that was in my head as only an audio thing. And I went, oh, that's what it looks like. It wasn't how I imagined it. It never is, of course.
No.
But our local group had a short-lived tape scene, the SFOW Express.
Yes, which I think it was going before I joined, but I don't think I ever contributed to. I don't think I was ever.
I don't remember.
I think the idea. I think we just sent in stuff. I was just waiting to be invited. I think.
Well, Warren and I did our infamous audio play Genesis of the Wogans,
which has gone into history. I mean.
Peter Miles even had a copy of that. I slipped him a copy once.
I know.
I think he was confused.
I wonder if he kept it.
I don't know.
It's in his estate.
But we doing Genesis of the Wogans as a play, of course, you suddenly had to come up with clips, music, sound effects. So we used the Doctor Who sound effects album, of course, and I used a couple of clips of the Kenny Everett radio show that I taped a few years beforehand. So all this stuff comes in useful.
It does, but at least you made the effort to put all the sound effects in.
Yeah.
Back in '78, I did, because I was doing my show, The Magnet Editor, and I actually, nobody was around. I think Dad was upstairs asleep as usual, and I was home alone basically, and I did a whole story. I composed a whole story, and recorded it, and literally, so it sticks in my memory, that one, a bit longer. That book I've just given you is actually a novelisation of the sequel to that, which happened 9 years later. So I can still remember little bits of that, even though the tape's long gone. And that was great fun. But with that one, I did the acting, I did the sound effects, I did the music. I played. There's a judge in it, which I played like Fife Robertson, the old Scottish version of Jack Hargreaves. I used to think the English were strange. But at least you actually bothered to put sound effects in it. Yeah.
But Sonic Waves is like sort of mid-80s. SFOW Express is a year or so later. And then there's things like the Master Tape as well. That was the West Kent. Was that the West Kent?
That's right. Yes,
West Kent local group?
I think I was. My sort of mission was to sample these.
See what people do.
Funnily enough, my first. I did Sonic Waves 1, 2 and 3.
Yeah.
And then leaving school and all that jazz got in the way, and I didn't. And so I sort of left the Sonic Waves scene round about the time you joined it.
Yeah.
And Keith, our friend Keith, absolutely. I mean, I was still at school with him at the time, and I brought it in having listened to the first issue, and he was just blown away by it. It's very. I have to say, it's very very much where he was at. He really wanted to do a tape scene.
Well, I remember Warren and I listening to Sonic Waves on our little personal stereo thing on headphones on the school bus going to and from school.
Oh, wow.
So sharing headphones almost. It's very weird. But as you say, eventually you feel the call to do your own tape zine.
I think I would be wanting to do either a fanzine or a tape zine.
I'm just going to lean over and get some examples.
He's going to lean over.
I'm going to lean over.
Yes, I tried to do a fanzine in the early 80s, around about the time I was getting fanzines. But also, I then, of course, David Howell came along and changed the face of the fanzine forever. And I tried one called Ergon, which I didn't get past. I think I brought in my friend Otto Conliffe. He used to come and watch Doctor Who with me, and there was a season 20 review, and I think it got very silly and it wasn't very seriously done. So that by the by, and round about 1988, when the local group finished, and Warren and I will hang out a lot that year. And we were getting more videos, and we wanted to start up another group.
Yeah.
And I don't know, Salisbury Time Lords or something like that. We were going to, and there was, I pitched the idea of doing a tape scene, and I said, how about Ray Face Shift, because I thought it flowed off the tongue quite nicely. Yeah. And Warren said, nah. And so Keith was doing them all the time. I was getting to know Keith much better by then, and he did one called Meglos for years, which I don't think any of the issues have actually been discovered yet.
Right.
So
still to find.
If you have a Meglos, write into this address. But with that, and then Paul did his one, which has only just been rediscovered.
Yeah.
Called Who's Listening. I thought, well, actually, everybody's doing it. Let's do one. Let's get off and do it.
So this is what, 1989?
1980, summer 89.
Yeah.
And I think it was made in a hurry because I was afraid I wouldn't do it. I'd get halfway through and I'd give up. So it was just myself and Andrew Candish on the first issue, because he lived round the corner and I walked home with him from work. So I did most of it, and I just wanted to, because I'd been in Doctor Who Appreciation Society for nearly 10 years, and I really hadn't agreed with a lot of their views, and I just wanted a voice, a minority voice,
an alternative voice,
an alternative one,
yeah.
And that's why I started my feature Double Duds, which survived right until you're 15.
So that was sticking up for.
It was sticking up for
underrated
two
stories.
And of all the elements of Ray Face Shift, that could have gone on and on and on and on, because I constantly think, oh, that's a great story. Why didn't we cover that in Number Lunch? And so that really was where I was at with that.
Let me wave some copies at the. There's issue
4.
Is that's a cover by Elaine?
It is, yes. She did a couple of covers. That's a sort of Candyman made up of merchandise.
Well, there's a young you and me and Paul.
Yes, and somebody thought you were Andrew Candish. I thought, is that Andrew Candish on the front cover? There. That's us at Exospace Convention in 1990.
I should say it's wacky and tacky.
Yes, that was our
buzz line, wasn't it?
I think I said it off the cuff, and Lisa Wardle, who was one of our contributors at the time, actually put it on the cover because she thought it was quite
Number 6.
Number 6, yeah. That actually, Number 6 has a great,
Number 6 has a very personal significance.
Yeah.
Well, we better just say about Number 6.
Yeah.
You could send example issues into Celestial Toy Room, and they would review them and do a little write-up about them. And basically, it was free advertising, wasn't it? Because you could either pay money for an advert or send them a freebie. And we went down the send them freebie route.
Oh, yeah.
I did do a couple of adverts in DWB, I seem to recall.
Yeah.
Because I felt you not needed publicity, but
I did need a kick up the arse with publicity.
But certain circles of fandom had never heard of us, and perhaps ought to.
And also, you were our man in Dwars, because I'd left by then. All three, we've recently relocated all 3 reviews for the book. Yeah, which is quite nice. They were pretty. They were nice.
They were
positive.
They were quite good, considering that we were unknowns, I guess.
Using very cheap.
Yeah, but. Issue 6 was the Graham Williams special, tribute to Graham Williams, and was that the first one that you got, Lisa?
Yes.
Yeah. So Lisa sent off for it. You wrote her name down in your
In
your
my
book.
little red
you had,
book,
you had
yes.
a book of who bought who bought it.
Amongst them, quite famous names now.
Yeah.
One of them was Joe Lister, the
Oh right. Okay.
writer.
Yeah.
He did one, and a few other names that are written for DWM.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it was. I'm glad I kept that list now, and when they asked for it as well. So it's quite a
But
nice.
there's a direct link between Lisa ordering issue 6 and her and me meeting and
Yes.
being sat here today.
Absolutely.
So
yeah,
thank you for that.
Well, anytime.
You matchmaker. I mean,
know.
that's a whole story in itself.
Oh, it
isn't
is,
Yeah.
yes. And I think maybe one that should be told very soon because you're coming up to your 30th anniversary.
Oh, blimey.
There
we are.
Yeah.
Well, there's me.
Oh, yes, you
And
look like
Warren.
you're blacked up then.
There's Warren with a cushion stuffed up his jumper.
I have the original photograph of that, which is much better quality, but it was just after Battlefield, so Warren did an impression of the Brigadier with a very old...
Number 10.
Number 10.
Number 13,
13.
the horror issue.
Available in 2 different versions.
There's the long and the short of it,
That's
isn't
right.
there?
I tried to persuade Andrew Candish that an A100 isn't readily available. But
And 14. 14, well, that's the thing, you started with issue 1, which was 60, a C60. By the end, you were on a 2-tape release for 14, weren't you?
Yes.
So you definitely expanded.
Yes, I rather regret my double issue.
Really?
Yeah,
Why?
there wasn't enough material for it. Alan's pulled me up on this recently because apparently in the advert it's advertised as a C90 and a C60.
Yeah.
Which I don't remember at all, and it's actually the master tape's actually 2 C90s.
I've got a look.
But there's nothing on the other on the other side.
Oh, really? Oh, God. I can't
Also, we
remember.
have a technical problem in that David Britch, who was our regular letter, I was going to say fan letter, he did one which was put on issue 14, and the digital copies of it, it hasn't actually come up because it's, I think, too much of a mono track. But so it exists. I've heard it on. Ali's got a personal stereo type thing, and so it's still there. I just can't get Mr. Digital to talk to it.
Well, you did have. I guess there was that problem in that the master tape was done in your bedroom, as it were. So the ideal situation was for us to record it on your equipment.
Absolutely, yeah.
That was the best quality. You still have the odd sort of editing problem, I guess, but that's inevitable. Doing it
editable.
that way. But sometimes people would record at home and send things in.
Yeah.
But then you managed to get contributions from America and Australia.
That was handy. I had an American pen friend at the time who I would send Ray Phase Shift to, and it caught on out there. And they, in fact, I think when you and I did the introduction for issue 2, and here is Nicholas Thing, and I went ding, and I didn't think about it. I was just messing around, and everybody in an American convention was going, because of that, was going ding in the middle of a
Oh blimey!
To the bemusement of the guest. So I like to let you know you've infected bits of America.
Martha's here.
I'm
Hello,
just
Martha.
about to be photobombed by Martha. Oedipus.
Oh, careful, Martha. oh, there goes everything.
Oh, I've forgotten these beauty. There's another beauty. Where's he? Where's he gone?
I think that was it. Wasn't
That was it.
That was it.
Yes. They made them very handsome those days. My dad used to tape a lot of religious programs. Well, sort of like music ones from the radio, which are very nice to listen to now. But you can hear the odd sort of rumble, and there was one. I think the tapes. I thought I had it, but I don't seem to have it anymore. It's one of me and my mum watching Max Boyce, Christmas '77, and you can both hear us laughing. But we had it in we were listening to it in the car because we don't have a car anymore. So unfortunately, that's gone the way of all tapes. But But no, RPS, that was an enormously formative time, and I think it was quite nice because we made really quite a good team.
But running in parallel with those Rayface shifts are, of course, our adventures on VHS-C.
Oh yes.
And is the earliest one the Blake 7 spoof?
Yes, in actual fact, that was recorded straight onto a videotape.
Yeah.
Because
I remember filming some of that with this huge, great big camera that sort of on your shoulder. And I do remember we accidentally left the date stamp on in the corner, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we...
but that was a learning process,
absolutely,
that one.
It was a total learning process, and it's a nice little snapshot of kind of us at the time. But it's one of those things where if you could have you look back and think, why on earth didn't I do that? And one of which was you do it more as you get older. And I think the first time I picked up a video camera was where I hired it when my cousin got married. Nobody expected my cousin to get married. I realised there's going to be family there and everything. I've just got to do this, and I really should. I had the money. I should have actually gone out and bought a video camera, and I could have saved myself so much hassle. It was another 9 years before I bought a video camera. That was 1989, and it was another 9 years before I bought one, and it was ludicrous. I caused myself so much hassle and so much expense from rental, but then we still had the rental mentality in our head, because I grew up with rented this, rented that, rented da-da-da-da-da, and yeah, so and that's sort of the same as videos. But the video that was the first thing I did on video, and fortunately I've still got it. And then a couple of years later, for my godson's christening, which I've got my Uncle Leslie on, little bald Uncle Leslie. That's the last time I saw him, so I'm really really glad. And my parents on holiday, I treasure that too. And again, with our own team, that was an experimental thing. Paul got a video camera after that, and he did the Beaches sketches, followed by which emerged into Sutton Park. I was very keen to write my own stuff. That was another reason I should have bought it years before. But it's confidence. It's wondering whether people are going to do it and going to go for it. Eventually, I co-wrote Prison in the Sun with Paul, which we did 30 years this summer.
I mean, Prisoner in the Sun was a very fast turnaround. It was done in 3 days? Well, 2.5 days, really, wasn't it? Because we went to Longleat as well.
I mean, I always say you don't know what you can't do until you do it. In a sort of, oh, blimey, that was a big mistake. Why didn't you? And shooting 90 minutes worth of drama in 2.5 days. Really?
But you shot it in 2.5 days. How long did it take to edit, though?
That's a tricky one, because I didn't really have a video that could edit properly, decently, because there wasn't enough heads on it. It was bought cheap. So I was always going around to Paul's house, who had a slightly more sophisticated video, and we were, every little last bit of time. There's so many episodes of Sutton Park from 94 where I'm just sat cross-legged on the ground editing.
Yes, I've seen some of those. Nick is just editing in the corner for the whole of the episode.
I seem to be editing my life away. It wasn't until 96 when we did Run Faster Than the World that I actually thought, really, come on, gang, that's a bloody decent...
But run us through how editing worked then. Was it literally connect the VHS-C tape in one player to your video recorder and start and stop?
Absolutely.
There's nothing electronic about it.
No. I mean, for a title scene, you put a title scene together. You run it through pause, and then you go back and you be able to dub it. I'm even now, even as I speak, I'm a bit vague about how I did it, and some of the edits didn't actually carry through on certain videos. So there is a version of "To Cry the Woman" on YouTube without any sound or sound effects.
I remember lugging my Amiga 1200 round to your place.
I remember you lugging it.
And generating frames to use as end credits.
Yes.
And the great thing about the Amiga 1200 is that you could literally plug it into a video recorder. You didn't need any sort of graphics
That's right.
interface in between. So it was ideal for doing that.
Yeah.
But you were literally there sort of pressing record
Yeah,
and counting till 5
that's right.
and then going, that's long enough, and then pressing
Yeah.
stop, generating another frame, and then starting and stopping again. So
That's right.
it was literally it was a very laborious process.
It was,
Yeah.
but I was very grateful for that sort of. And we did our own music too in some
Yeah.
cases. Prison in the Sun. We've just unearthed all the original tapes of the music for
Good
Prison
Lord.
in the Sun, or the dingy dingy ding music, which
Yeah.
Lane calls it.
Ding,
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 ding, ding, ding, ding. You see, even that's still in my head. That's worrying, isn't it?
So I did a cut and Paul did a cut, and I think with the Traitors of Twilight Reality, the anthology one that we did after that, it was done the same way.
Yeah.
And then I really had to sort of stand on my own 2 feet after from Run onwards. And of course I got my first camera in '98 and did behind the scenes on the return.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that's the point. Not only have you got the films, you've also got all the making of
Absolutely.
footage, which
Yeah.
is probably about 3 times as much in some cases.
looking at the tapes now, I don't think it is.
Is it not as much as that?
No, it's
right.
nowhere near as much. But there's a making of the making of because there's some.
Oh, of course, Paul records that as well.
Yes.
Blimey, yes, that's true.
But there's some marvellous bits with the behind the scenes on that. But no, I mean, so you had Paul doing Sutton Park and the behind the scenes. You had Andy doing the behind the scenes. Andy Ching, our friend Andy Ching, who did the documentaries for quite a few of them. And even when he didn't do the documentaries, I think up to and including One More Bow, he actually did the behind the scenes.
But did Andy exclusively use VHS-C? I seem to remember he also experimented with another format.
He didn't use VHS-C at all.
No.
I was going to cross my legs then, but I'd probably
Sorry.
become a knee on a stick. No, he actually favoured. Sorry for watching this, Andy. I'm sort of there taking on name of it, but he actually used Video 8.
Yeah.
The 8mm one. He liked it. And I think he's on record as saying this, I'm all right. He liked it because it had a filmic quality.
Right.
Now, for me, looking at the kind of thing that was available then that he was using, and looking at the VHS stuff that Paul was using, I beg your pardon, VHS-C stuff that Paul was using and that we were using, I would say in terms of our stuff looked better, it looked smoother. It was only later on, I think, from round about the time we did To Cry the Woman, which was 97, he got a new machine which was a heck of a lot better. I started experimenting with Video 8 myself in the early noughties, and I did one, and the sound quality is better.
Yeah.
But I kept having to borrow it from Andrew. I don't know why I just didn't use my Panasonic, which was the VHS-C one. But during one film called The Gift from Eternity, I lost the lead, and so I wasn't able to edit it straight from the machine. And editing was a real killer.
Yeah.
In fact, that's what did for the films, really.
I mean, that's, I think, why The Return, our Blake 7 thing, never got finished, because I just couldn't face the editing.
It was soul destroying.
Yeah.
I hit a very large speed bump. There's one called Smile Again, which I did in 2002, and I just about got away with doing it on video. Because I tried. That was the year I got the computer. In fact, I blackmailed myself into getting a computer because I wrote a scene in Smile Again where somebody uses a computer. I was like, right, mate, you've got to get.
You've got to get one then.
So I actually really did force my hand on that one. So I remember ringing you up just as I was walking to Curry's and getting all the sort of advice I could get.
You must have been desperate.
But the thing is, what I didn't understand was memory.
Yeah.
Because I think I got.
You can never have enough.
You can never have enough. And the portable hard drive. God bless the man who invented, or the woman that invented that, because I couldn't do without my portable hard drive now. It's just, I just put everything on it. I use it for everything.
But going through these tapes now, how well have they survived? Do they all play, or do they give you problems?
They all. It's remarkable what plays after so many years.
Yeah.
Half of them are that I've encountered a half stalled, but I tell you, it's the VHS-C ones that have survived the best. The actual videotapes, such the VHS tapes, not so much.
Yeah, because VHS tapes, I know we've had. I mean, we've got rid of a load now, but start to grow fungus on them and all sorts of horrible splodges and things on there.
And aforementioned fungus actually did for one of my machines,
Yeah.
because I was asked by a colleague to tape a tape that had been out in Spain for years.
I thought you were going to say space.
Now that would be
That would have been preserved already.
that would be a challenge. But yeah, it was my colleague's parents had it, and it was of my colleague's daughter. Basically, hours of her going round and round and round and round with this on this horse. I thought, okay, I'll take on anything. And the fungus on there was, I mean, you could have found a cure for all sorts of diseases on that. It was pure penicillin.
Yeah.
It was really, and I shouldn't have put it through the machine. I did, and I wrecked the machine, and I had to go and get another one. So I'm on about my third machine, I think, for copying, which is, considering how much copying I've done, that's not too bad. But yeah, you have to watch it sometimes. But there's very few problems. I mean, there was a few sutton parks I put in there a bit wobbly, but I think they didn't like the machine.
No.
When I put it on there again, basically, if Paul comes to me with a video file that's a bit wobbly file, I'll always go back and do it again.
Yeah.
Because it's no, and also MKV files, which Keith introduced me to.
Yeah.
They revolutionised the way we did Sutton Park rather late in the day, but I could actually capture a whole tape with all the episodes on it and just have it in one file. Was previously
you used to have a bit left over.
Yes, there was
yeah.
this annoying little coda. So you have 25 minutes of Sutton Park. Halfway through an episode, it cut in, and so I'm redoing as many of those as I can.
Yeah.
And it's just So and it's just amazing because, and also there are relatives on there that have died, and there's it's just you. I always say to people, if you've got the old tape, I've got this old tape. No, give it to me. I can give you a digital copy.
Yeah.
I can make it happen. One of the most touching ones I've had in the last few years is my friend Alison, whose father died years ago, and he was an army officer who dictated things for his secretary on a dictaphone.
Yeah.
And the dictaphone is still around, and so was the tape. But nobody had taken it out of the tape since he died, which was like the early 90s. And I said, well, I don't know, I've never done this before, but let me have a think about it. And so I actually bought a dictaphone of my own with a connecty bit.
Yeah.
And I brought his voice back to life.
That's great. Yeah.
And I think also I have to mention that the recording of my grandparents from 1971, done on the little machine that we had, the Sony. That's another recording I treasure, because my dad, my grandmother sounding extremely Welsh, and prompting my grandfather, who said, my sister and I quote this liberally. He goes, "Oh, do you remember this?" And there's this pregnant, ghastly pause, and my grandfather going, "Not easy to forget." And I'm thinking, what was that about? But that's also on YouTube. So, but no,
I'll have to put up a link to your channel, because
yes, please,
I'll
please subscribe.
I'll put a thing in the description.
Yeah.
What's it called? Nick's
Bits.
Nick's Bits.
Nick's Bits, I think, yeah, something like that.
People always subscribe to that.
Oh yes, for the wrong reasons. Yes, I did. I have to say, one of the films that I did was a short comedy about making films.
Yeah.
And there was a character in there based on a real person that Ali used to work with on the rails, who was absolutely obsessed with the idea of becoming a porn star, but didn't want men to look at her. And Ali, how does that work? She didn't want to do anything else. Porn star, boom. It was going to be there. And I basically Sarah Cheney played her. And I think when it went up, there was this film, and basically it's being pulled in all directions by the actors. Somebody wants to make it about drugs, somebody wants to make it about something else, and they kind of, the themes go. It's tug of war of themes, and I think the porn bit caught on with, and I got some very strange
certain circles, shall we say,
from abroad.
Yeah.
And judging by the language, and I had to take it down in the end. I think it's gone back up again, but we haven't had any trouble so far. But people thought it was going to be naughty,
yeah.
And it is not naughty. It's got a few swear words in it, but it's not naughty. But that was a film I made in a day. It was bloody hard work, and it was baking hot, and it meant taping Doctor Who anyway. But we did get it done. But Andy Ching has done some films as well.
Yeah.
He directed one of mine, and there's two of his that I was in. In fact, it was Child of Anubis,
Oh, yes.
and Playing the Waiting Game, and he directed my To Cry the Woman. Now, I very much hope one day he will do digital copies of of cuts of those films, because they're all. I just like. It's all part of personal history.
Well, I was going to say it's personal history, but it's also social history as well. That you see fashions, you see cars, you see buildings that aren't necessarily even there now.
Yeah.
So I think it is a very valuable record that you've got.
And people that you don't see anymore, and friends you don't see anymore. I mean, Lee Freeman did masses of creative stuff on Sutton Park.
Yeah.
He did all these marvellous characters. He's nowhere to be seen now.
Yeah.
He's vanished off the face of the earth. People. Ali's always, you haven't got a Sutton Park on there. Go, think about it. You've got. It is a probably never to be repeated snapshot of the 90s and our gang in the 90s. And
I honestly don't think there are many people that have got access to such a large chunk of their past as you have. So
I feel very privileged.
Yeah.
The trouble is, once you find some, you get greedy and you want more. But you want to share it with people, and you never know when these things are going to. Whoa, yeah, and it's. I'm only too pleased to do copies for people and things like that.
I mean, the 2 bags full that we've given you now.
Yes, sir. 2 bags full, sir.
2 bags.
Yes, I mean,
I've got no idea what's on some of those audio tapes, because I was just handing them over to you saying unmarked tape. And there's got to be something on there. I've no idea what any of it is there.
I mean, we discovered a whole new tape scene.
Yeah.
When the last drop of Paul's stuff was, there was lots of audio messages which we're bringing back to life, and there's one just saying Andy's first tape, and it's Andy Ching and everything. And it's an audio message from Andy, because I don't listen to them all, but and I copied it up, and it just so happens I transferred it. The night I transferred it to Paul's, I bought Paul a purely for audio hard drive for Christmas, and it just so happens I just transferred it over. And I got them talking about tape scenes, and lo and behold, he said, I did a tape scene that only Paul heard. You did? and he mentioned about this Fox John Pertwee interview. And I thought, you mean something like this? And we played him a bit. And I thought, it's a tape scene. Wait till I tell Alan. Because, well, as I say, we're tracking down every single tape scene that there ever has been. Famous, infamous, the most obscure stuff is coming up. And we're on a mission, really. So it's amazing what you can tell. So little did I know, because he taped the first part of it on side B, rather than side A, and of course I'd immediately gone to side A and done it from A to B, and I had to go back and switch them round. But that's immortalised in the book.
Oh, fantastic.
So get people interested in their own past as well as let's grab it, let's immortalise it, and it's all part of history, and let's make history just a bit bigger.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what you can extract from our tapes.
The thing is, the unmarked ones are the most exciting, because you never know quite what. You've got my old, for example, you've got my old copy of Time Monster. It was my first audio of it, Time Monster. Yeah. Now, memory serves me. We used that tape to record our own version of Time Monster.
Improv.
Because I bought
saucy version,
a no holds barred. One where basically the RPS crew are having a little bit of fun with the actual original script.
Because you have you still got that script?
Yeah. And I actually won it at a convention. I think I bid for it at a convention, and we all gathered around the tape recorder and
did silly voices.
And I think that's one of the things I was rather hoping was going to pitch up. Just for that, it'll probably just be time. That's got Warren.
Yeah.
That's got Warren in it. And it's just a cavalcade of people. It's people that make life interesting, and there's just an awful lot of them about still there, and they can be in your living room, and you can still enjoy stuff. And this is the time to do it whilst we've still got the means.
Yeah.
That magic has never gone away, and then I got so excited about today I could hardly sleep.
Oh. Well, you can have a sleep. You can have a nap.
I can have a nap later, but no, it's just nice. It's just lovely to be here.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you for joining.
But it's my age. It's lovely to be anywhere.
Thank you for joining us, Nick.
It's been a pleasure.
And we'll watch those tapes, as we say. And we'll say goodbye now. And
goodbye.
We have to do a freeze frame at the end.
Yes. It's David Maloney ending. Credits.